Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Don Miller Show.
Watching as well. Yeah, I am kind of thick.
If you don't say anything, no one will know.
I know.
It's the Don Miller Show. Are we still listening, laughing, and learning?
That's what we do today.
All righty. Welcome to the Don Miller Show. We have a great show lined up for you today. We are talking about Eatonville, the selling of Eatonville. So, Don, take us right into it.
Well, so for those who may not know, Eatonville, Florida, is definitely 100% the oldest black incorporated township in America, incorporated by freed slaves who oftentimes came from Georgia, Alabama, and some parts of the Carolinas to settle in Eatonville, to work the land in Eatonville. And many of them found themselves around Central Florida, and of course in a place called Maitland, Florida, as we all know. And I heard, of course, about the town through the writings of folklorist and anthropologist Zora Neale Hurston. So for those of us who have gone to school and studied any level of literature, we know who that might be. And of course, for those who don't know, of course, the great festival that has gone on for many years in the town of Eatonville spoke so truly and so highly about the community as well as the history of that community.
Right.
I came here a long time ago, more than 30 years ago, to Florida, and one of the first places I wanted to see, D'Amica, you know I'm all about history, especially the history of our people. I want to know what Eatonville was. So I went to Eatonville, and amazingly, I fell in love with that community. I remember one of the first people I met was an older lady by the name of Miss Ruby, and then I met so many other people who just loved that community. Many have been in that community for many years. We go all the way back to Miss Dinkins, who just recently passed away. Of course, Miss Louise Franklin and the Franklin family have been on their land over 100 years. And so it's just a great, great culture, a history of who we are and how we came to own something so early out of slavery. So it's a great story. And I think so often we attach it to the life and the writings of Zora Neale Hurston. But Eatonville is a lot more than that. Eatonville is a town, I always say that slavery is white history. How we survived it is black history. And I think it is so important that we start at the basis of this conversation. Eatonville, Florida, started many years ago, put together by black people, an amazing story. So I want you to go and read about it, and especially after this show, I want you to go and read about it. I want you to venture to Eatonville. It's about 6 miles north of Orlando, central Orlando. Just a great story. But tonight we're going to talk about what's happening in Eatonville. We're going to be joined by an amazing guest who's out there ringing the bell. And I got to tell you, my mission today is to get people to pay attention to what we should be paying attention to, and it bothers me so much. D'Amica, you know how I am about black folk allowing other people to come in and direct what our crisis is, right?
Right.
And one of the things that pushed me to do this show is a few weeks ago, several hundred black people went to Tallahassee, Florida, and they were upset over the conversation about advanced placement and U.S. history,
yes.
Black history and advanced placement, a conversation that I think is a weapon of mass distraction. And when we have a town that was ours, that we created, that we built from the ground up, that's real history. So I think we got to stop letting people, first of all, tell us what our history actually is. And if we're really that woke and give a damn about history, I think you need to listen attentively tonight. You need to get a pen and a pad. You need to subscribe, click subscribe, share it with your friends, and tell them this is very important. Tonight is one of the most important shows that I've done, and I've done over 2,000 shows. And I put this show up with the top of the shows that I've done because I'm passionate about history. I'm passionate about how we continue to move forward. And it's just devastating what I'm seeing. And it has come at the hands, let's be clear, it has come at the hands of Negroes who have, in a sense, sold us out. But I can do one thing tonight, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to ring the bell on what's happening in beautiful Eatonville, Florida. Go ahead, Demi.
Not only, I think, you've been passionate about this show because of its history, but I think a lot of times we, especially on the radio show, we talk about how we have allowed people to determine what our crisis is, or determine what our plight is, or determine what we should fight for. And in most cases, the things that we're fighting for doesn't move us forward. And especially when you made reference to Black history in the AP program, and then when we expose the statistics,
The data, the real data.
the data of how many, the percentage of Black students that are even in AP courses.
That's a crisis.
Right.
Not AP Black history. The fact of the matter, in Florida alone, there are 202,000 students in AP, period. That's with 9 counties not even having AP. And the question is, under 9% of those 202,000 students are Black. So is it more important to go to Tallahassee and bitch and moan about Black history being in advanced placement
as a part of the curriculum, or
focusing on Black history being snatched from us right under our noses? And so I want to talk about Eatonville today. I want to talk about the historic Hungerford High School and what happened with Hungerford High School. And I'm really upset about this, so I'm going to calm down. I've been told don't go on today, Don. I've been talking to a lot of people about this because I'm passionate about this. But I just need everybody to understand, right? Until we stop letting people, our enemy, pick our enemy, and we're not going to move forward. So I wanted to have a guest on, and I spent a couple of hours with an amazing woman the other day, a wonderful, wonderful lady, Miss Louise Franklin, whose family has been in that town for 100 years. Her dad was a chauffeur for Mayor Spooner, who was the mayor of Winter Park, Florida, who vacationed, who actually wintered down in Winter Park, and her dad was the chauffeur for Mayor Spooner, and they purchased land, the land that straddles Maitland and Eatonville, the only land that's privately held, that's been in this family for this long. And I had a couple of hour conversation with her, just amazing conversation. Thank you so much to Calvin Simpson, Calvin Franklin and the family, and Edwin, of course. I just think it's time to have a conversation. So we wanted to reach out to someone who could eloquently tell us how this came about and what the situation is. John Beecham is joining us. His family has been in Eatonville for a very long time, an amazing family of successful people. They have all committed to that community. So John Beecham, he is in charge of Eatonville1887.com. I want you to head over to Eatonville1887.com, land back, and John is joining us. Hey, John, are you there?
I'm here.
John, let's talk a little bit about the crisis right now. This is a crisis to me because developers are on the verge in the next few weeks of closing a deal
March 31st
that will take the remaining 100 acres that I believe was wrongfully snatched from Eatonville by the Orange County Public School System in what I thought was a total scam 2 years before Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas. And so now all of a sudden, the last of the Hungerford land is being sold away, bringing addresses. I think addresses is a problem in a town like Eatonville, because if you add 700 or 800 more residents at the numbers that we're looking at for this community, then I say Eatonville goes away at that point. So, John, what are you saying? What are you seeing?
Well, what I see is a repeat of Hannibal Square, a repeat of the downtown Paramore area. Most people see gentrification. What I see is segregation. If you look at Hannibal Square, it is all segregated now. It's a white community, and those same people have that push in Eatonville. And what they see as economic development is apartment complexes, condos, and pushing the African Americans out of the historical town of Eatonville is what they see.
So you say pushing them out, and I think based on the numbers that we're seeing, this is like the fourth or fifth deal that has been out there in terms of the purchase of the land in Eatonville. We've seen it quietly chopped away for a long time. We've seen it sold at the hands of those who were supposed to be representing this community, doing backdoor deals for years. And listen, I'm probably going to name some names before I get off the air. But my concern is, right, and I go at black folk personally. I go directly at black folk, right? Because black folk own this. This was their town. The council was black. Everybody was black. And my concern is that how does anybody think that this is a good deal for the most historic, the first first municipality. There are only three in the country from that era: Eatonville, Florida; Mount Bayou, Mississippi; and of course, Phoenix, Illinois, which is just south of Chicago. Three towns allowed, black people were allowed to incorporate, Eatonville being the first, right out of slavery. And I think a situation like this is just, first of all, it's quite arrogant. It is quite arrogant when you look at how this whole deal came about. Orange County, you guys know in Orange County, Florida, you got a black mayor. You have a black county mayor who's sitting here looking at this deal. You have black politicians, and everybody is focused on something else. And you got these black preachers who come on, you know how I feel about that. But my concern is when this happens, if this happens, I hope it doesn't. I've been talking to some people, and we all are hoping that we can make enough noise in the next few weeks to make this developer go sideways on this deal. But the level of arrogance from some of these people, especially, you got to look at this, right? So I've been paying attention and talking to a lot of people. The developers come in. They've already been thumbed up quietly by people in the county. And this land is very, very valuable land. It faces I-4, which the traffic count on I-4 is gigantic, right? So they don't want the backside. They want the front of Eatonville. I think the number is a bad number. I think what they're offering to do is a bad number. And I am going to say this. I am ashamed of many of those people who all of a sudden they realizing they're getting ganked. And now you want to raise your hand. But so John, let me ask you a question. What does your organization, Eatonville 1887 Land Back, what does your organization want to see go in that place?
Well, we want to see it develop as a destination. So what does that look like? It looks like Eatonville, we want to build around humanities, arts, and cultural heritage. Every day in Eatonville, there's tourism. Tourists come to Eatonville to see the place where Zora wrote about. They come to see that place where Deacon Jones elevated his career in football. They come see the oldest black municipality in America because it is designated by the Smithsonian. And so they want to come see that town. There's something to be proud of. And so what we want to do is create a vehicle, a Wyndham Worldwide, so that would serve conventions for more than 1,500 people. Now, when there's a convention in North Orange County, we want to look at Eatonville as part of North Orange County. To have to go to Shingle Creek, Disney World, and Universal Studios to do a banquet. There's nowhere in North Orange County that they can do conventions for more than 300 people. So we want to invite that in so we can get the tourism tax and all those economic advantages that come with that. Then we want to create a Zora Neale Hurston Museum. So when people do come through OIA, they can stop and see the Zora Neale Hurston Museum and the Educational Heritage Center, which will feature Eatonville Museum and things about Zora, Joe Clark, one of our founders that we don't talk about often enough. And with that, we want to create a recreation compound for our kids, from volleyball, basketball, recreation, swimming, splash pads, so these kids in Eatonville can enjoy themselves. Then we want to create an economic hub where we create, where we can talk about tourism and how we can create a restaurant where we can get chef-inspired restaurant, train people on hospitality, and also with a STEM program. And then we want to create an amphitheater where we can do something like a musical for like more than 5,000 people. So when tourism come to Orlando, they can visit this town. And then we want to create a office park because those items give more economic impact.
Let's talk about economic impact, okay? Because Kennedy Boulevard, which goes directly through Eatonville from the east, from Maitland, directly across the city, and there's a high traffic volume on that road as well. And many years ago, they tried to widen that road. When I came here, the conversation many years ago was Maitland wanted this town and they wanted it bad. And my concern is, look, this is not about at all. I'm 100% about capitalism, okay? I support economic growth. This is not a knock on anybody trying to get the bag. I think everybody should have access to the bag. But my concern is that all of a sudden these same people, see, I come here today to speak on behalf of Joseph Clark and Miss Dinkins and Miss Franklin and many of these people who have lived in this town, right? And now they're looking, and these people, they've given everything to this town. NY Theory, and all of these people who've given so much. NY, when she started the Zora Neale Hurston Festival many years ago, I remember 200,000 people would be in the middle of the street in Eatonville. And it was a beautiful occasion of people who were selling their goods and just engaging, great arts, great music. And I just believe right now that watching the numbers come back and understanding Hungerford High School, which was when they started Hungerford, when Mr. Calhoun, who came from Tuskegee, who was educated under Booker T. Washington, came to Eatonville and they opened Hungerford Prep. It was one of the premier preparatory schools in America. It was dormitories. The students came from all over to live there and learn the industrial trades and farming. Mm-hmm. And my concern is, of course, after the war, things started to change and the numbers went away. And then the land grab, then the quiet, racist land grab. And I want people to understand that for Orange County Public Schools, who really, quite frankly, in that era, in 1952, when I read right, the decision that was written by a judge whose history was absolutely against the Negro, right? We're talking about the same Supreme Court justice in the Florida Supreme Court who was the guy who didn't want Virgil Hawkins to integrate the University of Florida. The same guy in 1947 said Negroes should not be able to vote in a primary in the state of Florida. He pushed it, and he pushed it heavily. So here we go with this judge who was the guy who's going to decide if the county can take this land. What the hell you think he's going to do? Of course, he was going to lean to those who were his friends and his cronies. And now we come to this now, 2023, and we are on the verge of seeing this wonderful town. And Eatonville was different. Eatonville wasn't like Rosewood or Coe, where, of course, the massacres that we're familiar with happened. Eatonville was different. These people in Eatonville, Mr. Clark and the 20 other men who joined him in the purchase of this land, these people were different. These are the people that built Maitland, right? So the animosity from Maitland toward these Negroes wasn't what we saw in Ocoee and of course, Rosewood. And it was a beautiful move. It was a beautiful experience. And to see it come to this, I'm quite frankly appalled by it. And I want to get, in a few minutes, I want to really get to how it happened, how this came to be, the history of this community. Eatonville, Hungerford High School. John, can you tell our listeners and our viewers what happened in 1952 as Hungerford started to decline, how the county came in, and the game they played to steal the land?
Well, it came in because the school was kind of like on a decline. And so they came in as that angel and said, hey, listen, let us help you run your school. And they came as angels. So of course the town people allowed that to happen, but the plan was all the time to do that title. It's called a quiet title. Yes, and in 1958 they actually acquired the land through a quiet title. But I think that was the plan in the beginning, to take that land from those people, because you remember, like you said earlier, it was just 2 decades after slavery when Eatonville got established.
Right.
And so you got to realize that most of those people was still uneducated. They could work hard, but they was good people. And all they really wanted was to educate their kids. So when you get people like that saying, we're going to help educate your kids, and they're professional at what they do, you kind of believe them. Now, as people begin to die out and deteriorate, their plan was to acquire that land, and they acquired that land through a judge that they knew. You got to imagine that all the attorneys was probably, at that time, University of Florida grads. Mm-hmm. Right? It was segregation. Emmett Till hadn't even got killed yet. The Kennedy boys hadn't died yet. MLK hadn't even been assassinated yet. And these guys are operating and taking land from these sons and daughters of slaves.
But again, this is what's amazing to me. All these black lawyers, and I talked to a black lawyer who I am convinced is an absolute idiot now. Because he spent so much time talking to me about the history of black lawyers in Florida. And one name came to mind every time I had that conversation Virgil Hawkins, the Bar Association, the State of Florida Black Bar Association is the Virgil Hawkins Bar Association. Virgil Hawkins he was working at Bethune-Cookman University, and he decided to go to law school. He applied at the University of Florida's law school, and he was denied entrance, right? And so this became a case that went to the Supreme Court of Florida. The judge on that was a guy by the name of John Matthews, right?
Matthews.
And when you go back and read the history of John E. Matthews, then you know who the hell he was, right? And John E. Matthews, again, in 1947, said Negroes should not be able to vote in the primary, a Democratic primary. No. Then he also blocked Virgil Hawkins. So anybody who's attached to the Virgil Hawkins Bar Association can read this opinion, right? And say, whoa, this is not our guy. He took advantage of the guy you love the most. You are attached to his organization, the Virgil Hawkins Bar Association. And this is the judge who also ruled to take this land. Let's be clear, is the guy who's an absolute racist. So how do we think any deal done in the Florida, you go across the country now, there are things that are being overturned every day because we know at that level in the southern states, the level of racism, even in the courts, was at the highest level it could be. So how could we even think that this is a good deal? And then the schools, Orange County public school system, come on, you guys got to do better than that. Go ahead.
So, I was reading through a lot of the material regarding Justice Matthews, and he made a couple of statements that I thought were very interesting.
Absolutely.
Which made me wonder, to John's point of them being angels, the Orange County public school system being seen as angels. But if you look at what some of the things that Justice Matthews said, I'm not really sure how we could come to the conclusion. So he says things like black private schools are no longer needed. He said things like black people don't need he called it high end high-class boarding schools.
Right.
So
he said this in his opinion.
Exactly.
You can go read the opinion.
Exactly. So he downplayed the education so much that I wonder, how is it that anyone could come away from the statements that he made thinking that he would do anything that's beneficial to the education of black people at that time?
And again, you go back to the conversation. Absolutely. You can go read the opinion. Fisk versus Coddington, I think it is. I'm going to put it up on all my platforms, all my pages. You go read what the judge said. And the judge pretty much said, you Negroes can't handle this.
Exactly.
Give it to these people over here. And then the school system took the land. 2 years later, Brown versus Board of Education came about, which would probably have changed everything as it relates to this. And now we find ourselves here in 2023, 100 acres being sold off to white developers who were so arrogant that they didn't even go find a big black development company to even partner in this deal. And the Negroes who could have told them to do so didn't even tell them. And I think that is offensive right there. So listen, I don't know how everybody else feel about their history, but I'm appalled by this. And I want to talk about this today. And I'm going to go in deeper a little bit because I have a personal story about Eatonville that I'm going to share with you guys. D'Amica, you and I talked about this the other day, right? And we talked about, it's amazing when I went to those meetings and I sat in the back and I just quietly listened. You don't even know what questions to ask. I'm like, they don't even know the right questions to ask.
Exactly.
So what happens if you don't know what questions to ask?
If you don't know the right questions to ask, then you never get to the real problem.
Right.
If you never get to the real problem, then you can't offer any valid solutions. So you find yourself circling around what could be a turning point in any plight or issue, but you never get to it because we're not asking the right and relevant questions.
And again, so I'm at that meeting. John, you were at those meetings. I'm saying to myself, okay, somebody's got to know the right questions. How did you feel in that meeting? A guy who's waving the flag by yourself, don't let this happen. How did you feel when the people that are supposed to be on this council didn't even know the right questions?
I just think it's just white fear. I think black people are afraid to speak their mind. And the one thing about being from Eatonville and born and raised in Eatonville, we're not cow tongue. So when I lived in Eatonville and walked through Eatonville every day, we knew exactly when we walked down the street who we were going to be facing. It was another black person. We never had to get off the sidewalk. So what I see today is that people like our former mayor, Eddie Cole,
Oh, come on.
he's cow tongue. He panders to the white racists because he believes that he thinks that they know better. And I think that's the problem. You talked about those leaders early in one of the other podcasts, like our county mayor. I think like you talked about our civil rights leaders. They've been paid off, right? They've been black shamed. The same thing with Ron Blocker running the school board, been black shamed. Barbara Jenkins, been black shamed. They feel like they can't use harsh language or any type of language because they don't want to offend.
And let me just say this, right? And anybody knows me, if you don't know, I don't know how to do this. Listen, I talk to everybody about this. I've been having meetings for the last month. John, you and I talked about this. D'Amica, you know who I've been meeting with.
Right.
I've been meeting with a lot of my Winter Park friends, a lot of my country club friends, and they are appalled by this as well, right? Because let me tell you when I heard about Eatonville and the history of Eatonville. I moved to Florida many years ago, and I become a member, first black member of this club. And when I joined this club, I joined it because I learned early on that you cannot grow from the outside, right? I needed to be in. And when I was offered the chance to come in, there were people say, hey, you don't want to be a part of that. They racist, okay? And they don't like black people, whatever. I'm going to join because I want to know what the conversation is. So I joined this club and I met some wonderful people, man. And everybody was probably 30 years older than me, 25 years older, and just some great, great men, right? So I remember a conversation I was having. I just gone to the Zora Neale Hurston Festival. And I went to have drinks at the club. We had men's night on Thursday nights. And one of my great dear friends passed away last year, 2 years ago. He was 93 years old, a gentleman by the name of Leon Hadley. And I was telling him I went to the Zora Neale Hurston Festival, and Leon went on to say, there he is on the screen. That's what he was, D'Amica, we loved Leon.
Yes.
Leon passed away a couple of years ago at 93 years old. He practiced law for almost 70 years in Florida. So I was talking to Leon about the festival, and he was like, yeah, that was a shame, what happened to Eatonville. And I'm looking like, I didn't ask, how do you know it? I just let him go on and on. He was like, yeah, that didn't go down right. That didn't go, he kept saying it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking about this, right? And we didn't go into detail again. And then we chatted about Eatonville a couple more times. And then I am reading the opinion today and yesterday, the opinion that was written by this racist judge, right? I'm reading this opinion, and then I look at the top of the opinion, and I see a name, right? And on the opinion, the lawyer who was representing Eatonville was a guy by the name of Edward J. Gurney Jr. And I heard that name hit me. I was like, I know that name from somewhere. So I kept reading, and then I was sitting there earlier today, and I said, whoa. So I started looking, and I thought about Leon and the other guys at the club, Claude Wolf, and these guys just talked to me about Eatonville, these older white gentlemen. And then it hit me. Leon Hadley, the name of that firm was Gurney, and Hadley. And that's when it hit me how he knew so much about the land grab and the racist Supreme Court justice who absolutely knew what he was doing when he played that game by giving this land to the Orange County School Board. So I'm really, again, trying to pass on information. And it makes me think about Miss Dinkins, who passed away in 2020 at 102, who loved that community so much. And she was always about growth and engaging and helping people. And I look at Miss Franklin, who was sitting on some beautiful land. And I know this is bothering her. I had a great conversation with her. Miss Franklin is in her 80s, and her dad, again, they had that land for 100 years. And this is bothering me that these people are watching it come to a point where their land and their community may no longer be theirs. Because you can tell me what you want to tell me. See, some people call this gentrification. There's a difference between snatching and gentrifying, right? Gentrification is different. Totally. This is not gentrification. My position on this is we are up and down the street talking about black history. We're telling people we're woke. We're not woke. We're sleepwalking, right? Because if you're woke, you're going to pay attention to things like this. This should be a national conversation. Great. I got to announce right here, and I probably shouldn't say it, but watch on the 19th, CBS Morning News. John, CBS Morning News on the 19th is doing a special on what happened in Eatonville, correct?
Yes, sir. They are doing it with representing the PEC.
Yeah, so they're doing a story of what happened in Eatonville on the CBS Morning News this Sunday morning or next Sunday morning. And we got everybody get up and watch it, okay? Or save it, or go to your TVs, or how you save it on your TV and go watch it, because I think this has to be a national conversation.
Right.
But we also have to be okay telling people who have attempted to backdoor us on this, who look like us. Y'all black folk, we look funny sometimes. We won't call each other out, right?
Right.
I am telling you, there are some people who should be ashamed of themselves.
And it's not even about calling somebody out. It's just about calling wrong, and right.
Right.
No matter what color you are.
Okay, well, you know, I'm a little aggressive.
If you black and
I'm
you
aggressive.
wrong, we need to call out wrong.
I'm aggressive.
If you white and you wrong, we need to call out wrong. We
Right.
just need to stand for what's right, regardless of what race, regardless of what gender, regardless of age. Any of that is irrelevant. Either you just stand for right, or either you align yourself with wrong, period. And if we do that, we'll be okay.
But again, I got
was
to
wrong.
in my other life for 30 plus years, I've been involved in developing. Okay, and most people.
And I want to talk a little bit more about that. So go ahead.
Okay, in my other life for 30 plus years, I've been involved with developing, and not on the ground as a builder, but definitely with one of the largest developers in this country. I've been in a key role for a
Right.
long time. Correct.
Right, correct.
And I've watched as we have gone into communities how important it is for us, and we're not even dealing on the level that this trickery is. That it's always important. And my job was always to get in front of the deal, go to the community, feel the community, understand what's important to the people in the community and do it
feedback.
quietly without TVs, and do it quietly without taking money from certain people or passing money, and always recognizing what can we do? What can we do to make this smooth and make this transition better for everybody involved? And I actually don't see that, John. I don't see. How arrogant is it to not come to this meeting or show up and say, look, what we've done, we found a reputable local builder that's going to come in with us and be a part of this, a builder of color, just to show up, okay? Just to show up and come out at people like this, and then think it's okay because you got a black lawyer who really don't deal with us for real, speaking on your behalf. I have a problem with it. Go ahead.
So I have a couple of questions for maybe John, maybe you, Don. I'm not sure. So is it even realistic at this point to think that Orange County Public School will do anything different other than going through with this deal when they stand to gain $10 million from it? Is it $10 million?
It's $10 million.
It's $10 million. So I heard read some comments by the mayor about them giving it back to the city. And I just don't think that's logical. Why would anyone want to give you back something that they stand to gain $10 million with? So that's one question. And then my second question is, yes, there are developers out there that would have gotten feedback from the community and tried to present a different planning or a different strategy for the community in terms of building and development that could have been mixed use, that would have preserve some of the history, but still bring in some economic growth. So what alternative developer or strategy from a developer has been presented? Or are they just, John, I guess this is a better question for you. Are you just having a conversation and you're just throwing out ideas? Is there an actual developer that you've talked to? Is there an alternative development plan that you can present?
Yes, I think at the last town hall meeting, I presented the plan that we had a plan drawn up, not to scale, but of some of the ideas that the people in
By
Eatonville
actual developer?
No, we consulted a developer
Okay.
with that. But what we believe let's get one step back. We believe we're going to get the land back. That's the reason our committee called land back. We've overturned council with the comprehensive plan. There was 3-2 yes, but with our group land back organization, we got them to go 4-1 no. We're actually doing a recall in a couple of days of one of the council members because we believe that we need to take our town back. And we have to let our town people know that we, the people, are in charge of this township. So we're going to be doing a recall. Also, we also planning a protest at OCPS office so that we can let the community know. It's a public awareness campaign. I think you see the Southern Public Law Group just gave an inquiry to Orange County Public School Board of all the federal laws that they have broken on this land deal. We believe that they're going to right now they responded. They're talking to the developer now. So we believe that the developer is going to retract and get out of it. It's going to be a messy mess. I think when you look at what the acquisitions that the Southern Property Law Group made to Orange County Public School Board, I think they begin to realize now that they may have made some mistakes. So I think you're going to see a compromise come out of this shortly. Okay, so and I think,
well, you're better than me because I think it's a wrap. I've been in this town a long time, and I think it's a wrap. And I'm going to be mad as hell at the people who sold this community out. I'm also going to be angry at a bunch of black folk who are marching up to Tallahassee about AP history. You Negroes don't care about history. This is history.
This is history.
So it's this is if a white person don't rub them the wrong way, they don't get up in arms. So maybe a white guy can drive through Eatonville with a flag that says something derogatory. Maybe they'll all come behind that, because it's always got to be mad at a white person for us to get interested about something or to get emotional about it. We should be upset about this. We should be angry. Okay? I'm not saying don't build Eatonville, and I would never say that. I'm all about capitalism. I'm about the bag, right? But I need people who look like us to also engage in the bag. And this $4 million, John, talk a little bit about the $4 million in the little piece of land that Eatonville has accepted back.
That's not. So the OCPS gets $10 million, and Eatonville gets 7 acres and $4 million. Well, that's not. They're not giving us anything. That's again another theft, right? Mm-hmm. The Eatonville revenue, their tax base is $4.5 million a year.
Right.
$4 million is going to be gone in less than a year. They won't be able to develop that land with $4 million. It's one of the things where I've talked to, like, for example, so there was this thing called Achieve, the CDC study called Achieve, Health to Community, Health to Environment. The Winter Park Health Foundation funded it. They came up with a Healthy Eatonville team. One of the ladies that actually guided our team, one of the ladies that actually helped did the master plan and the CRA plan and even the development plan, was working for the Falcone group, the first group that actually won the bid. The reason this other group, Sovereign Land Group, is involved in it now, because they was going to sue Falcone Group because the bid was awarded to them. They thought they had a higher bid, and so they was going to sue. So they joined hands as one company, and then Falcone dropped out, and now Sovereign's in the play. There's a lot of politics being played right here, and I think you're going to see that begin to get exposed. So I say keep the faith. And again, I like to say that the problem also too is that there's no cry from the black community. Right. I think our county mayor can make a deal to end this deal. He could be a hero, but for some strange reason, he's not pulling that trigger. But he's hearing our voices, because again, I think these guys are black shamed, and these are our civil rights leaders, and they're not leading anymore because, quite frankly, they don't know how to give back. We have overcome, but how do we give back? I think we look at some other black brothers and sisters, and talk about their fraternities, and they're flashing their signs, but they're not giving back. It's a clique, and these Negroes have been lost. They don't even recognize black, because they believe that we are less than. That's why they're helping Eatonville. Eatonville is less than them because they don't realize that the reason that we're in this predicament now is because their mom and dad got them educated, because civil rights, Jesse Jackson. We can't even talk about Jesse Jackson anymore. We don't talk about slavery. We look at the Jewish people, they talk about Holocaust, they talk about Anne Frank over and over again. And the reason what's happening in Eatonville around the country, because they don't know the story. And that's what 1887.com is doing. We're out telling the story.
John, let me be devil's advocate for just a second. It's just a different perspective. I like to also see both sides of the picture, right? So if you drive through Eatonville, it is pretty safe to say that it looks pretty lifeless. You could call it dead. And for people who may think that, okay, yes, it was Freedom built Eatonville, and it's just been pretty much surviving. But at what point does it get to thriving? It hasn't thrived at this point So maybe this is good for Eatonville. You're going to bring in 2,000 residents with this deal. So that's 350 single homes. So right now, the average income in Eatonville is at 30,000 or below.
Right.
The unemployment is less than the U.S. average. The U.S. average is about 6.6, and Eatonville is under about 5, hovering around 5. So what do you say to the people that see Eatonville as something dead, and maybe this is something that's going to pump life into it?
Well, it's just like a Walmart coming to town. Even what you see on Main Street is a product of integration. That's what you see. You need to take a drive on the back street with the clean homes, nice homes. People have well manicured lawns, and the houses are in Eatonville. That's just Main Street. That's the advantage. That number, that happens everywhere. That happens downtown Orlando. That happened downtown Winter Garden, and there's a thing called revitalization. And I think the plan that we are setting forth is cultural heritage, tourism, and there's dollars out there in the arts, and there's dollars out there to feed that system. Eatonville is a living museum. The investment can come from Orange County. You know, if we put that motel I'm talking about in there, it's going to drive more tax revenue than that whole development. That development that they're proposing is going to drive $2 million a year. What is that? That's nothing. What is going to happen is what that development that they're putting in is going to force the town of Eatonville to raise their taxes, and it's going to push the Black people out. There's no success in the story that they're trying to tell. No success.
D'Amica, you made a very interesting point. Maybe people are quiet because it's like, here we go again, right? Here we go again. There are a lot of very successful African Americans in this community, lots, okay? And how many of them have invested in Eatonville? I'm looking, Eatonville's got to be hovering around 40+% renter right now. And how many of us are the landlords? Very few. And I'm sure the last several transactions have not been us in purchasing there. So maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to buy it. I think this is a land grab. I think it is an absolute blatant miscarriage of justice starting in 1952 by the Florida Supreme Court. I think if we think that anything that judge did that had anything to do with Black folk based on his history, you can't trust it. And so I just believe that hopefully when the national conversation is placed the other day, and I hope they present it properly, I believe they will. I am just concerned that maybe the developer, but as someone who's been around that business, I don't see the developer walking away from $10 million because there's so many other ways they can make this happen. And I just want to get it out. I want to ring the bell today. And I just wanted to, just let people know that this is a problem for all of us. And my shirt today says you can't save someone who's not willing to participate in their own rescue. And that's very important. There's a reason why I wore this shirt. You cannot save someone who's not willing to participate in their own rescue. And I am saying there are enough prominent people of color in this community for sure who ride around in fancy cars and live a certain that can be invested in this community, even if it goes in another direction. Why can't we have ownership as well? Look, I'm a capitalist. I'm all about the bag, right? And I want to have a conversation about how everybody can engage in the bag, and that's not just a couple of people.
Can we be realistic?
That'd be realistic.
But what is attractive for those who can invest in Eatonville, those who can purchase? What is attractive about Eatonville at this moment that would make them want to make that kind of investment? Realistically. Okay, you can't answer that question.
Listen, you know what it is to me? History. The history is attractive to me. Now, again, we're talking about the bag, right?
But it's a town with people. How does it grow?
Right.
People want to invest in something that's going to grow. Right. How many people do you really know who is going to make an investment in something that is not growing?
Not very many.
Not very many. And I personally think it's just unrealistic to think that people will do that. People invest in growth. When they see the potential of growth, then that's what they're going to invest in.
John, again, man, we thank you so much for joining us, man. And they can follow you at John Beecham. It's Eatonville1887.com, land back. And I appreciate what you're doing, man. Keep ringing the bell, man. I really thank you so much for coming on with us.
Yeah.
I know you have some
can I have
last
one thing to
words.
say
Yeah,
before
you
I
got some
leave?
last words. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, I got last word. I think one thing that
He's like, yeah.
I think one thing that we count out is that Eatonville is we have faith in God, and in God we trust. And I know that's a lost mark, and where people don't believe that in miracles, and people don't believe, but I believe because I've been given a vision by God about this Eatonville thing, and that's why I'm here. It is a higher power that pulls me to Eatonville, and I'm just telling you, mark my word today, that an angel will appear. Faith only looked risky, but we survived. Eatonville survived. The oldest Black municipality in America will survive, and it will survive, and it will thrive again. Don't always believe in the numbers, because there is, like Coca-Cola did at East Lake, where they play the FedEx Cup every year. That angel's out there, and he's listening, and he'll be around. Stick around, check it out. We call it land back. Land back.
John Beecham, thank you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. John's committed, and I support him 1,000%. I just wanted to get the word out and explain what's going on. I think it's important for those of us who have these platforms to tell people this story. A lot of people don't know this story.
Exactly.
This is history, right?
It is.
And especially when I'm watching everybody talk about history, right? Everybody's talking about history, and Governor DeSantis
Marching on behalf of
is
history.
affecting the history of Black people in a negative way. I just want, if we on history, can we be on history for the next 30 days if we on history, right? Everybody's talking. I got a call from a minister the other day who wanted to know my position on AP's history, African-American history in AP. But you got to understand what AP is first. You got to understand what AP is about. AP is about the bag. Every child I know that has gone through AP for several years in high school left high school with the bag, right? And I think the problem is not African. We don't care about history. Cut it out. That's all nonsense right now. Because if we really cared about history,
the bag? I don't know
the
that.
bag,
That's
money,
slang.
money. That's Tesla and Figaro, the bag, right? That's money. We should be looking at economic growth, okay?
Yeah.
So for us to be marching, and you see all these people in Tallahassee. I saw so many people in Tallahassee. I'm like, you don't even know why you're in Tallahassee. Bring your ass back, right?
them.
They don't know why they're in Tallahassee. Somebody told them.
Right. This is what we need to be.
No, a white guy rubbed them the wrong way, right? So when a white guy rubs you the wrong way, guess what we do? We march, right? But the reality of it is, this is history. This conversation, Eatonville 1887, is history.
It is.
Right before our eyes.
Right.
This is where people came when they wanted a better life.
Right.
And they were blessed to meet white
Not long
folk
after the war.
that allowed them to go and purchase property. Initially, Maitland didn't want them to buy any land, and they said no. But along came Mr. Lawrence and Josiah Eaton, who allowed these Black folk to purchase land and build a community.
Right.
And that's history. Slavery is white history. How we survived everything is Black history. So my position is, we got to start looking at the bag. How do we get to the bag? And I can tell you this by allowing something like this to happen, because I'm telling you guys, that festival won't be there if this goes in this direction. Because if I lived over there, I wouldn't want my street blocked off. And I'm telling you right now, if I'm paying that kind of money to live in a neighborhood, don't block my street off, right?
Yeah.
I don't want all that, okay? I want to live in a peaceful environment. I just got upset in my community the other day. They had a festival. It's nonsense. Can't go where you want to go. Can't eat, okay? Got to, I don't need all that. I'm saying we move toward emotion so often. Why can't we be emotional about this? Maybe Ron DeSantis to show up in Eatonville and rub everybody the wrong way, and then
everybody show
then
up.
Ben Crump can come. You know what I mean? Like, geez, man, what does it take for us to care?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. What does it take for us to care in an era of wokeness, right?
Right.
What does it take for us to care about us? Because what I'm seeing, somebody white got to rub us the wrong way.
Right. Right.
And then you go back to why, I'm going to respond to someone just said, well, why is the Black mayor not saying anything about what's happening in Eatonville? That's a good question. You guys voted for him. You know what I mean? So you ask him. Why can't anybody ask him? Well, there's a little place called opensecrets.org where you can see who supported who who's campaigned. So if you go to opensecrets.org, you could probably see who gives money to who politically, and that creates a whole nother conversation.
Let me ask you a question, since we're on the topic of developer, right? Is it within his power to make demands on the developer?
Absolutely, he can do so. Absolutely.
To create mixed use.
Absolutely.
Where there's where mixed income levels.
And Teresa Jacobs as well.
Well,
the chairman of the school board. It's in her power.
From what I understand, Teresa Jacobs has been denying any meetings with the governor, with the mayor of Eatonville. Is that true? Is that what you're
Well,
hearing
again,
as well?
listen to me. Again.
So she's not talking. The mayor's not talking.
Right.
Nobody's really having a conversation.
And they're not talking because they don't have to. Because how much money did you donate? How much money did you donate? Go to opensecrets.org and see who gave money to who. So when you hear this hush, there's something behind it.
The hush.
You know, Mr. Beecham just mentioned the former mayor, Eddie Cole, right? Man, listen, you know, I want to keep this the right way, but Eddie Cole
didn't do
nothing.
Didn't do right by
nobody, right? Anytime you excited to be in a room with somebody who don't look like you and you don't ask what questions, the right questions, right? He's so excited to be invited, right? I'm here. Thank you for inviting me. Okay. Then before him, there was a mayor who was a great guy, but he didn't know. And the only mayor that I think had the ability to maneuver in such circles, Anthony Grant, you see what happened to him. I'm concerned that they love it when they create environments where people who don't have a clue can be in charge of something. The lady that's now, she's probably a wonderful lady. What does she know? Nothing. When you're running a municipality, I don't care what size it is, you got to have the ability to engage, but you got to know what you need to be asking for. You got to know the ask. Okay? You show up and don't know the ask, you might as well stay at home.
Pretty much.
You have to have the right questions. Even the 7 acres that's being handed to the city with the $4 million that's not going to last long. Has anybody decided to do a study on that 7 acres? Why that 7 acres, right? Again, you got to know the questions. And if you don't know the questions, you're wasting your time. It's amazing. I was listening and it's like everybody's emotional. Don't take our land. Well, guess what? Listen, I'm going to go straight political right now. This is what happens when you vote for people that don't vote for you. You guys run to the polls and show all this love to people because they look like you.
Right.
And this is what happens. Everybody in the county of Orange that's black ran to the polls in 2008 when Jerry Demings first ran for sheriff, and they loved him. And immediately when he got there, he raided barbershops and arrested 38 young black men, okay, on a bogus allegation.
You won't let that die,
I'm never going to let that go. Never going to let that go, okay? They voted for him overwhelmingly. I was even pushed in the middle of that and gave money, right? And then he got there and he immediately raided black barbershops in Pine Hills, okay? And that became a lawsuit to the state, and the state settled, right? So we got to be careful, right? For just because somebody look like you don't mean they got you. Okay. And then so many of this embrace just because of a conversation. Look, I don't care. You can turn your TV off or turn anything off you listen to me on right now. I think that liberalism is the enemy of black people. Right. And when we engage,
the enemy of all people.
when we engage blindly like this, just because somebody look like you, I'm telling you right now, they ain't got you. They don't have you. And you are looking at the demise of a great community. And I'm saying, look, see a fool, bump his head. Got to look at the way you vote. Got to look at the way you engage people. And this is not just in this community. We have seen this over and over and over again. And at the end, somebody's waving a flag. Why us? Why now? Because you let somebody else tell you what your crisis is. You cannot continue to allow people to pick what's important for you. And if you guys thought it was a good idea to go to Tallahassee and talk about black history in AP, but not go to Eatonville and say what's up, then shame on you. Go ahead, Domingo.
So at this point, the people that have the power to change the course of this vehicle, we'll call it, is our county mayor
Yes, absolutely.
and Orange County Public School Board,
The chairman.
the chairman, which is Teresa Jacobs.
Absolutely.
So those are the two.
Both of who I've supported. You know this.
And so these are the two people that the community need to be targeting to make a decision that's in the best interest of Eatonville.
Right.
Because a lot of times we have conversations and we don't know what the target is.
Right.
You know,
All the time.
we don't know who to direct the conversation to, and we don't know what the ask is.
Right.
And I think it's important that people come away from this conversation knowing who to take their the right questions to, knowing who can turn the tide of this conversation.
Absolutely. Again, you know, you're watching this, right? Eatonville, the two largest structures in Eatonville outside of car dealerships that don't claim them or TV stations that don't claim them or, you know, it's two big churches, two gigantic churches, right? And most of those people who show up on Sunday at the two giant churches that don't pay taxes to that community don't live in that community. But the pastors have worship centers in that community. I haven't heard. I want to hear what the pastors are saying.
Yeah.
The big guys. These are giant churches.
That's what St. Lawrence.
No. St. Lawrence is the little small church that was, that's the oldest church in the community. But you're talking about Macedonia,
okay.
Reverend Barnes, and the Life Center on the corner, right on I-4.
Right.
And my concern is, I haven't heard from them.
Right.
You know why? Because, again, they are friends and embraced of those who look like them in the powerful position. Look, if you get excited about having a sandwich with somebody, then you a fool, right? If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And my concern is I came here today to ring the bell for those people who worked really hard to build that community, for Mr. Clark and the 20 other black men who built that land. I came here to ring the bell for Miss Ella Dinkins, who was no longer with us, and Miss Louise Franklin, who was no longer with us, and Miss Ruby, Miss Randolph, people that I know loved that community, and that's all they had. To NY and the Theory. And to John, man, thank you so much, John, and to the Beecham family, right? We got to pay attention to it at least.
Right.
I want to come here today and have this conversation. And I'm like, okay, you know, how do I approach this conversation as a guy who is all about development, all about, you know, grabbing the bag and building economic growth. But how do you have a conversation when, like you said, D'Amica, you know, what? You know, what?
Yeah.
What can happen? There are people who have sat on that commission, that the city commission in Eatonville, who have gone back door and tried to cut side deals for years.
For their own personal interest.
Absolutely.
And not the interest of the people.
Absolutely.
And we always get those kinds of representatives, and we keep voting for them.
Well, again, this is a big push for people to get involved.
Right.
Listen, like and subscribe. We're here on Don Miller on YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends, like and subscribe. We'll be back next Thursday. But we just want to keep the conversation going. This is near and dear to me. I'm passionate about bringing attention to wrongdoing. I have done it my whole career in radio, bringing attention to wrongdoing. I don't care who it's done by, black, white, whatever.
Right.
Wrong is wrong. And I see the support. Listen. If you ain't making noise, you're complicit. Okay? John Beecham, thank you, sir.
Silence is complicit. Yeah.
If you ain't making noise, if you ain't saying nothing about this, you're a part of the problem. Especially if you got a damn microphone, okay, or a platform where you can get people to pay attention. You're a part of the problem. This is not right, especially when we're talking about African-American history. Right now, that's in the news all over the country. People calling me like, Don, man, they going to take African-American history out of AP. I said to myself, I ain't even know they had African-American history in AP. And I had a kid who took 30-some AP classes.
Yes.
And you know what he told me? He said, Dad, I wouldn't have took it if I had to. I'm taking STEM.
Right.
He said, it's hard enough. I'm taking science, engineering, math, technology. I'm taking STEM.
Yes.
And if we want somebody to put African-American history so we can take it, ain't nobody going to college on that. STEM. But again, somebody said, and we didn't like that they took it out. How dare you take it out? Go look at the sign up for African-American history in AP. It'll be under 2%. But listen, stop it. Stop letting somebody tell you what you should care about. You don't care about history. You're showing it right now.
Right.
Look, the white
Very
dude in
clear.
Tallahassee told you he pulling it out. No, you're not. You're not going to pull it out. That is not a problem for black folk in this country. African-American history and advanced placement. Get out of here. But guess what? They told us it is. So you got all these people that got on these buses and these church vans and went up to Tallahassee. Don't know why they even in Tallahassee. They should have been in Eatonville. That's history.
Right. Right before our eyes, being snatched away.
Thanks so much, everybody. Again, you
Good
can follow us on all
conversation.
platforms. Subscribe and like and tell your friends. I appreciate you so much. Shout out to my main man, Phil, man. Hey, Phil, I appreciate you, boy.
Yes.
Listen, this is Don Miller Podcast with D'Amica Page. We'll be back next week. Again, thank you so much, John Beesham, 1887.
Yes.
Eatonville1887.com, to Miss Franklin, Miss Randolph, and of course the late Ella Dinkins, NY Nathiri, and all of those who are fighting for that community. We love you, and I won't shut up. Bye-bye.